Nebraska. We lost to Illinois on Friday night. I like to record these on Monday. I'm probably pretty thankful that we didn't because my outlook is changed a lot. I'm back on the delusional end of the Nebraska fan cycle. Um, Even had to take a bit of a Twitter hiatus because of some self harm tweets. So I had to take a step back, but nonetheless, Nebraska loses to Illinois. Tough night. It felt like the same story, and like once like halfway through the fourth quarter, it's just like I've seen this movie. I know how it ends. When we got into overtime, like I shouldn't feel this bad about going into overtime at home, but I do. And then of course now I start seeing stuff like we haven't gotten a first down in the last 8 overtimes, 0 points scored, and it's just like, why does this keep happening?
So a couple things. If Purdue runs PA Power O, that's their offense, they're going to kick the shit out of us because apparently we do not know how to stop that play, which is what um, Illinois just kept running. Scored like three
Worked every
touchdowns
time.
on it and a couple big first downs.
Like it didn't even
Um,
like come close to not working one time.
no, nope. Actually, one time we did stop it, but I think that was happenstance that somebody just happened to be there.
Just by accident.
Yeah. Two, I don't want to be this fan, but the officiating in that game was very, very bad. Um, I'm not saying that if it were a little more balanced that we would have won that game because I still think the way that we played on defense was so bad. I think we deserved to lose that game with the way that we were playing on defense. I'll keep it
Yeah.
at that. But again, I do want to point out how bad the officiating was.
Well, and
Um,
that's just this unfortunate narrative that I wouldn't have never expected is the fact that the defense is the unit that let us down, got
yeah,
torched. And I mean, credit to Illinois. I mean, they obviously had a game plan. They saw what Northern Iowa did that outworked that I was too naive to think was a problem. I thought, there was plenty of reasons why Northern Illinois could or Northern Iowa could run over us, and they picked us apart. Luke Altmaier was crazy efficient throughout the night, knew exactly what wide receivers were going to be open and hit them throughout the night. But I just didn't, in like no world, I think the defense would be the one holding us back.
but I don't want to put it all in the defense. That was a big part of it, but there were a lot of miscues rather on the offense. Ramir Johnson being out of bounds, wide open, on a should be touchdown. Isaiah Nayer getting that ball ripped out of his hand, turnover. The wide open Lindenmeyer in the end zone missed, would have been a touchdown. And then the missed field goal. Those four miscues on offense cost us dearly because as bad as the defense was playing, they were still giving us opportunities to score on offense with the turnovers, and we did not do anything with that.
Yeah, that's true. Because if Nayer comes down with that ball and then Raiola hits that man in the end zone, that's 14 more points. It's not a close ball game.
Yeah.
I'm picking up what you're throwing down.
So
And again, the defense, to keep it in perspective, gave up 24 points in regulation. Yes, it wasn't pretty. Yes, overtime wasn't pretty for them either. But like Tyler said, this thing keeps happening where our offense's problems keeps showing up. Where Colorado, we didn't score in the second half. Northern Illinois, what we score 7 or whatever it was, and now, I mean, how many do we score against in the second half against Illinois? Not very many.
I thought it was pretty even.
14.
Was it?
I think we
Yeah, like
scored
it didn't
14
seem
in the
like that
second
they
half.
really took their foot off the gas pedal like they had the first 3 games.
It's just, and Matt Rule keeps saying like we want to control the fourth quarter. I don't know if I necessarily agree with that. I want to finish games. I don't want to just play even or wear down the clock. Like the goal should be to score as many points as possible for that reason. Like if your defense is having an off night, you can pick them up.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I
and
do
I
really,
don't.
go ahead,
I
Tyler.
do want to note some highlights though. Like a couple good things
Well,
came out of this
I'll
game.
get into the
Okay.
good things here. The
Okay.
last bad thing that I thought of, is you talk about controlling the fourth quarter. What's the best way to do that? It's not throwing the ball down the field like they were. It's running the football, and they just weren't having great success with that throughout the night. And I think that's
Yeah.
also very worrisome moving forward.
I think Mizuka needs to get back out there. And I saw it on Twitter today or yesterday. It's like, does building a culture matter more, or does winning football games matter more?
I saw that Twitter today.
And that's the age-old question, right? I mean, us sitting here now, yeah, we just want to win games, but in the long run, it's going to be building that culture. And the fact that we still don't know what he did, it's hard to give a concrete answer
Yeah,
on
and
that.
I think that's the missing piece of information. We don't know what drew up this hiatus in the first place. I would have to assume, just based on the fact that he suited up last week, he played some special teams, that it's not all that bad. Um, and I mean, missing 2 games in a starting role, that's significant. Especially when your team loses a game like that, where the margins were so thin. So, I mean, he was listed number 2 on the depth chart, so we'll see if how true that is on Saturday against Purdue. But it kind of, yeah, and it's impossible to give a good answer on where that balance is without knowing what started it all.
And if it comes out that he was just drinking all night before the game or something, I mean, yeah, you want your guys locked in, but I don't know. Again, it's hard to speculate because I don't want to sit up here and say one thing and it ends up being something completely worse. But I hope that Matt Rule's doing the right thing and not just being an ass, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I mean, we got to talk about at this point that our true freshman quarterback is by far the best player on our team. I mean,
Certainly on
is there
Friday he
anyone better?
was. I mean, I would like on the whole team.
Yeah.
I mean, again he was on Friday, so I'll start with that. But I would still resume wise put Ty Robinson ahead of him.
I mean, Ty Robinson, he does have
They
2
did.
sacks.
They were
Him
non-existent
and
on Friday.
him and
And
Nash
then
like
that's
might as
that's what I'm
well
getting at is
not
that
have
they
played Friday. But when you break down the numbers, he has 8 touchdowns, 2 picks. Both picks were, I mean, should not be picks. Both just ripped out of the wide receiver's hands. He's completing 72% of his passes. He's got almost 1,000 passing yards through 4 games. I
I
mean,
don't
what more?
disagree. I don't disagree that he's our best player, but I think it's a little bit of a stretch to say by far at this point. I think that we could definitely see a whole lot of separation in the coming weeks, but right now, I would be hard pressed to say by far that he's our best
All right,
player.
I'll say this: he's by far on offense our best player, but overall, he's still the best player on our team.
Yeah,
I
yeah, I
don't
don't
know if
have
I
much
would.
to
outside of
disagree
like
with that.
Tommy Hill and maybe the first 2 weeks, you could argue Ty Robinson. But I mean,
Yeah,
again, like the defense did really play good against Northern Illinois either. Yeah, they only gave up 3 points, but it felt like they were on the field forever, could not get off.
Yeah,
yeah. It seemed like Illinois just kind of looked at what Northern Iowa did and be like, oh, we're just gonna do that and we're gonna have more success because we have better players, and that's exactly what they did. But there are a lot of good things as Tyler was getting us started with. But I mean, I'll just get it started with we listed all the significant miscues, and it really comes down to, and I feel like we've been having this conversation for years. But if you just make the routine play, if you make the 40-yard field goal, if you catch the football in the end zone instead of letting it get ripped away, it's a totally different ball game. And the margins are so close. Like not even just so close for Nebraska to win that game, but so close for them to blow out Illinois in that game. Um, again, it feels like we've been having this conversation for years. It feels like they're right there.
yeah, it
And
does.
I'm kind of sick of being right there. You know what I mean? Until we prove that we can win a close game and kind of get on a roll, then I'm just gonna assume it's same old same. Like
Yeah.
if we just took care of business like on our end, we had a cakewalk to 7-0. Like we
Yeah.
easily left what 14 to 17 points on the board against Illinois. We do that to Indiana, we're going to be 5-2, and then we have USC and Ohio State coming up. And now Iowa's
You're muted, I think.
sorry, did I cut out?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was something you're
I said
back.
now it's like Iowa's figuring their shit out. So I mean, we still have three potential losses on the table now after that one.
Yeah. Doesn't look great, but I don't think that it's a death
It's
sentence
definitely
yet.
not over because USC lost to Michigan, so they looked human. They looked beatable for the first time. But now it's USC and Iowa become must-win games for us.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
stinks because it feels like that game would have knocked so many monkeys off our backs. We win the one score game. We win, against a ranked team. We win as a ranked team. We win in overtime if it comes down to that. Like so many of like the curses that it feels like, carried over from Mike Radley to Scott Frost to now Matt Rule in one score games here and all that hubbub. It feels like we would have gotten all those monkeys off our back with that one win, and it stinks that now that's still going to be something that we think about every single time the game comes down to the wire.
Yeah.
Well, you got to win those games to be the best, and if it takes losing a couple to get there, then it's going to suck for a little bit. But if it makes the team
And
better in the end, I
and
mean,
and here's the thing, boys. Indiana is going to be ranked when we play
yeah.
them, and that's not going to be an easy environment for us by any means. So
Do you guys look at this as a super bright side where I'm glad that it happened right now to wake our asses up going into a team like Indiana, going into that Ohio State game, going into the USC game? Like, do we look at it that way, or are we all doom and gloom on that?
I think if you look at it in a vacuum, you can. Um, but because I have the baggage of the last 7 years, it's hard to look at it in that rose-colored lens. But I think absolutely at the end of the year, we could be looking at this being a turning point in. Because you also got to remember, especially on offense, there's a lot of new faces on this team that maybe don't have that same kind of baggage or those same kind of battle wounds that some of the guys on the defense have brought over. So yeah, I think we could look at this point at the end of the year. I mean, like this was a turning point. This is what really got everybody locked in, and then they rattled off 8 straight games. They went 11-1, won the Big Ten championship, and now they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to fathom a world where we go into Columbus and win after fumbling away a game at home against Illinois. But again, if we end up beating Indiana, USC, and Iowa, then yeah, it was a good learning lesson for us, I believe. But at the same time, our schedule was like pretty clear that USC and Ohio State were going to be the two toughest. That not to saying like I guess we could have afforded to lose and taken care of all the other games, but now it's we got to play with our hairs on fire if we're going to get to where we want to go.
Yeah. I mean, at the start of the season, everything looks so different. But then as you play, you realize same thing as Indiana. Wow, they're way better than anybody expected them to be. And then you just got to roll with the punches. It was the same thing with Illinois. Um, yeah, I definitely a game we should have won. I'm choosing to look at it as a bright spot. Like, hey, let's now you know what you need to do and how to change the way that you're playing to figure it the hell out and win these games.
And I think if I'm looking at it, from the glass half full, the defense needs some adjustments, and I have full faith that Tony White can do that, and that he can figure out,
Yeah,
where that team is vulnerable, where he needs to shift things around. Um, I also want to give a shout out to Zaire Wright. He was awesome coming in off the bench for Tommy Hill. He had some great open field tackles, held his own in pass coverage. Then, I mean, boy, really, Illinois was marching down the field
Created
again
that
before he gets that.
turnover in
Yeah,
the fourth quarter.
before that forced fumble. Um, and so he was awesome. And the players on this defense rock. There's a lot of dudes on that team and a lot of experienced dudes who probably feel sick to their stomach even today about it. So I have more faith that the defense can get tightened up and locked in, as opposed to like if the offense was struggling, then it kind of feels like, well, shit, what are we doing here?
Yeah, that was one of my bright spots. The other one was Dylan is real. Like he went up against a pretty solid Big Ten defense and balled out.
Yeah,
So
he
that
was
makes me
awesome.
feel really good.
I guess I want to see our 6 year guys, Gifford and Nash and Ty Robinson in the big games matter more because that was our first real test and they were all just non-existent. Would love to see more Sayer Wright and uh, I think less Buford at the other corner spot. Um, if Tommy Hill's not healthy, obviously going to need both of those guys to step up in a big way. But I just, the defense that we saw last year, if we can keep that rolling and, take it personally every week, then I think we'll be all right. But I guess time will tell.
And I'm just thinking like with the NFL bodies and the experience of this defense, 24 points should win you a lot of games in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Not
Anything
Ohio
under
State, not
30.
USC, but yeah,
Yeah.
24 should get the job done. And that's like we said, offense had a lot of miscues. Really could
They
have
did.
been 35, 38 if we have a kicker. Also about that, another week with John Hole, which I guess I don't feel that much worse with him kicking than Alvano at this point, but that's also a bummer.
Yeah. Just anyone who can kick it through the uprights at this point.
Yeah, and I read that story about Brett Maher being on the staff, and I got super excited, but then I kept reading, and it turns out he's been on the staff this whole year, and I was
Yeah,
like, oh no.
not quite. But I guess I heard Sean Callahan and Steven Sipple talking about it. Like sometimes these things take time, and it's got to be so beneficial to have somebody who's done what they're trying to do, but at the highest level. That's got to be extremely valuable, and not a lot of schools get that. So I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I just wish
Can't
like maybe
hurt.
could we I mean, who would really notice if we just stuck out Maher? Like just throw a helmet on him, give him
Met Baher.
that's yeah, just give him Alvano's jersey, and just see if anybody notices. That can't be that hard.
Yeah. No.